Hey everybody, welcome back to RavenHawk Coins, and yes, we're going to do another one, guys, on currency. I apologize for the voice. Sometimes it gets a little stronger, sometimes I sound like Sal, but hey, nothing wrong with that. Basically, why I'm going back to currency in this next video is the last video, there was a couple statements down below. People made comments. Some are basically explaining how you were able to use silver certificates. Others are, want to know how they exist and whatnot. So, I've even gotten a couple emails. So I wanted to clarify some things about how currency is produced in the United States and what really happens. So, to give you an example, every year the government has to basically, Congress has to approve how much money is minted and what happens. So, when silver certificates, and that's the first topic we're going to hit today, when silver certificates were produced, that was from an act called the Silver Certificate Act of Congress, February 28th, 1878. And they issued the silver certificates all the way through 1964. And the reason they did the silver certificates is it was really a guarantee to people. It made them know that they actually had something in the bank, and they could come to the bank with this silver certificate and know that they could get a dollar in silver, or they could get the equivalent in bullion. And the reason they did that is simply because a lot of people, they didn't have faith in paper. They're like, how does this piece of paper have anything that backs it up? So that's why the United States government was on the gold and silver standard, and you had gold and silver certificates. That always made people get the ability to know that they could turn in their their hard-earned money for something that they could tangibly hold in their hand and know that, hey, if anything went wrong, silver and gold always trades value no matter what's going on. So if there's a natural disaster, that's one of the reasons stacking silver and gold and whatnot is important to people. It gives you a freedom that a lot of people don't really comprehend. A lot of people are kind of, we're in this world where, everything's at our fingertips, and the reality is one major natural disaster and we're back in the Stone Ages, if we can't get electricity and everything on the grid, because we depend so heavily on technology. So that's one of the reasons I do all the stacking and the silver stuff and whatnot. So, but I wanted to get into what this act further went on to do. So basically, like I said, these bills were produced. There were larger size bills up until 1923, and then they went with this standard size that you see like right here and here with all these different bills and the modern bills, so that people could fit them easily in wallets. They didn't have to have what they called, the old bills were called horse blankets, and it kind of made it inconvenient. And so this act basically made sure that the silver certificate had the distinctive blue seal that you see on it right here, and anybody could come in and trade it in for silver or bullion. And then in 1963, Congress passed the silver law, and this basically did away with the silver certificate in 1964, because the price of silver at that time was $1.29 an ounce, and the United States government was basically losing approximately 29% on every dollar they were producing. So what happened in 1964 was the last year you could turn them in for Morgans or peace dollars, and then 1968 was the very last year you could turn it in for an ounce for $1 worth of silver bullion. So banks used to actually keep a lot more bullion than what people understand. Then over time, we actually went to what's called, we went off the gold standard, and it went from being a United States of America guaranteed note like this is, to a Federal Reserve note. Now, the Federal Reserve doesn't go by the gold standard or the silver standard, and hasn't done that in a long time. So a Federal Reserve note is different than an old school bill. That's one of the cool things to know is when you see Federal Reserve note, that's a more modern bill, that's after the gold standard. When you see this certifies the deposit of the United States of America in the Treasury of the United States of America, this is way different. This basically means the United States government backs it completely, Now, the federal government also backs the Federal Reserve, and there's nobody that's ever been, robbed from them. Basically, they do guarantee an insurance on your money, but it's not the same thing. These have to say Federal Reserve note because, once again, they're not backed by a commodity such as gold or silver. And then I wanted to talk about one subject we hit on last time, and that is the godless notes. These godless notes were actually produced in 1935. They only went 1 year, and it wasn't the full year. It's series A through F have the, what they call no motto or godless note. And what had happened is in 1935 when this came out, I said before they went to a standardized bill. They put the pyramid with the all-seeing eye and the eagle. And then they wanted this really nice, what they called modern one. Well, for some reason they decided not to put the "In God We Trust," and they probably did it simply because, that one looks really nice and impressive by itself. Well, this country, the United States at that time, and has always been a very religious country, there was a lot of people, kind of a backlash against the godless note, and so that's why the series stopped at G. And since G is a transitional part, you can find a 1935 godless note, and if it has right here where it says 1935F, if this is 1935G, that's actually a premium on top of it being a godless note. So you really want to keep your eye on that. If you find one, it's a really cool find, something kind of like a bragging right to add to your collection and whatnot. I apologize for the glare, but I do have to keep these in their little packs. So we'll put it over here, give you a little better shot. The other thing I wanted to talk about is in certain states, when you invest in commodities such as gold and silver, and we'll use California for an example, if you purchase over $1,500 at one time, you actually are not taxed. And they do this because they want to encourage people to invest in commodities. And a lot of people don't understand, or actually not, I shouldn't say understand, a lot of people don't even know that this law actually exists. And it's one of those things, to give you an example, if your tax rate's 10%, $1,500, that would end up being $1,650 total. Well, if you didn't have to pay the tax, you have an extra $150, and if silver was at 14 something, roughly 15 an ounce, you could get an extra 10 ounces of silver alone on the tax you save. So you want to make sure that you check your local laws, your state laws, of course, and make sure that you're getting the best money for your deal, because that is one of the coolest things about doing this. You can make a really good return on your investment, and you can save on taxes if you know what you're doing. Secondly, or finally I should say, if you are a YouTube channel that does auctions and whatnot, giveaways, everything, you are literally a small business that's being run out of your home, and this is actually a great benefit to most people. And of course, depending on your state and whatnot, they have different rules, but when you look it up, you can basically qualify as an at-home business, and you track your sales and everything. And because you're an at-home business, you're basically sending invoices out to people. You don't have to W-2 them because they're not your employee, and you don't have to send them a W-9 unless they're buying at a wholesale as a vendor. A vendor would get it as a W-9, and they would have to claim what they purchased from you and then repay later. But if, like, such as myself, if I buy from somebody and I'm putting it in my personal collection, that has nothing to do with anything. And on top of it, to qualify for a W-9, you have to actually have over $600 in some states to qualify for it. I think in California it's $800, but it's one of those things that you want to pay attention to. But the fact that you can run this as a home business, you can go talk to your local tax accountant about what you're doing, and they'll tell you the different things you can write off. You might be able to get some benefits. I'm not going to give out what you can write off, but I will say that there is an ability to do it. Anyways, I just wanted to touch on those subject, guys. I hope everybody's doing really well, and soon we'll get another music video out there. If you want to correspond, it's RavenHawkCoins@gmail.com or RavenHawkCoins, P.O. Box 2825, Vista, California 92085. Make sure you support all the channels, guys. Half dollar make you holler. Coin op. Everybody. As you know, these guys work really hard to try to bring you some great information and, have fun. So, once again, RavenHawk Coins, have a great day.